right, it is Tuesday night. We're back after a couple weeks, me dealing with an illness, but it's another episode of Goal Horns and Fight Songs. I'm Mike, this is Wes, and Wes definitely has a special introduction for a very special guest of ours tonight.
Yeah, joining us tonight is a two-time Michigan Emmy winner who has done the call for everything from arm wrestling to rugby, the longtime voice of the CCHA, current voice of Big Ten hockey, the original voice of the NCHC, co-host of a couple pods you may have heard of, When the Game Ends and Nothing But Hockey, and he will be on the call this Thursday when Western Michigan travels to U of M to play on the Big Ten Network. Joining us is Ben Holden.
Welcome to the show. Good to see you guys, and thanks for having me on. I threw this on. I had this on earlier today. That's the final year of the CCHA. I wore that to Yost, actually. We were down there talking to some of the Michigan guys. So, yeah, CCHA are my roots, and, yeah, it's fun to be on with you guys. I miss doing Western Michigan and Michigan games. They were some of my very favorite games all those years. I think it was 9 years in total before the split in 13, and I've said it for years, man. I love going to Lawson. I love doing games in that place. Lawson and Yost, honestly, are my two favorite buildings. Michigan State's near and dear to my heart because I grew up in Lansing, and that was where I did my first game as a quote-unquote professional play-by-play guy back in 04 when I left Channel 10 in Lansing. But I just love Lawson. I love the closeness. I love the noise. It's just like a tin can in there. And Jeff Jackson would always say whenever Notre Dame played in there, he's like, it's like playing pinball in there, man. It's a special place. And I know that, they're in the process of getting the new building going. And I'm sure we'll dive into that at some point. We did talk to First today, and, he had some good things to say that I can share too about that. But, and then you go to Yost. I mean, it's like, to me, it's like North Dakota is the king of the new school, and Yost to me is the king of the old school, man. So it's going to be a hell of an environment on Thursday night, and can't wait.
Yeah, and I mean, since the polls came up, it's going to be a top 3 matchup, 2 versus 3. And the Western's the top seeded team this time. I don't think that's happened too often in those two teams matching up, but this Western team's different than it has been in the past for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, their culture and the way they do things. And, Pat's got an unbelievable resume. And I loved Andy Murray when Andy was there. And Jim Culhane was great to me all the years I was in the CCHA dealing with Jim. And all three of those guys. I didn't deal with Jeff Blashill. I know Jeff from Miami mainly and a little bit with the Wings, obviously. And, First has just come in and built the program the way he wants it to be and the way he wants it run. And it's awesome to see them be such a player in college hockey because even in my years in the NCHC, they were close when Andy was there, but they just couldn't seem to get past the hump for whatever reason. And whatever First has been doing is working. And, it's a legitimate, obviously they won the national championship. It's a legitimate national contending team every year moving forward, in my opinion, guys. They've got it figured out.
And even for me, I went through the back-to-back years of UMD and the potential three-peat before the shortened season, which we'll get into that. But I've noticed it too. Western's my number 2 team. He forced me to, well, I chose to, but kind of forced me to wear Western jersey when we were down in Nashville. But you can see that progression where they're there a little bit closer, and then this year when they beat UMass in Fargo in the regional final, I went up there because I'm like, I'm going to support these guys. I've gotten to know these guys. Wes has more of a connection with Western than I do with UMD because, well, he's a little bit famous for some certain face paint.
David Putty.
I get to know these guys and I want to cheer for them and I want them to do well. But so I follow them more closely than all the others. And you can just see that progression that the coaching staff has had on this team throughout the years.
Yeah, I mean, I always remember Andy saying to us, whether it was Starman and Shireen and I, or, I guess it would have just been the three of us back then because Andy was there when they were in the NCHC, of course. And, he said the beautiful thing about here is, yeah, we're a small school, we're a Mid-American Conference school and everything else, but you can win a national championship here. He didn't get a chance to do that. Obviously, First got the job done, and that is cool. That's one of the things, guys, I really, really enjoyed about the NCHC because every single one of those schools hockey was their sport. It didn't matter if it was Duluth. Of course, North Dakota speaks for itself. Any of those schools, hockey was the sport. And, say what you want. I think hockey is the sport at Western Michigan now that they've won a national championship. And, their football program had some good years with PJ, and those were fun years doing a lot of those games at CBS. But, to me, it's a hockey school. I think people think of it as a hockey school, number one, and it's awesome, and they should be. I mean, we've got 7 teams in this state in Division I, and like you guys said, it's you got three schools ranked in the top 3, and 6 of the 7 have now won national championships. Western, obviously, the most recent. Ferris came close. That's a work in progress for them, but I take a lot of pride in that. I'm from Michigan, lived in Lansing, played in Traverse City, went to high school there. I love my state. I talk about that as much as I can to keep it, I don't want to get over the line on broadcast, but I'm very proud of being from Michigan. And, I'm proud of a lot of the players that I've had the chance to meet and connect with and over all the years. And, a kid like Owen Michaels, I don't say he's a kid, he's a young man. I mean, he's a guy that we talked to today, and, I know him. My girlfriend knows his family real well, and that's how I kind of got in contact with Owen. And he was gracious enough to come on and do a pod with Paul Caponigri and I that we kind of dabble with here and there after you guys won. And the well-dressed JJ Cruz, another guy, did a lot of JJ's games. He came on, and, it's cool because you build those relationships in this sport. You guys know your hockey guys, and, I don't have an allegiance to one school. I didn't go to college and went in the Navy and went to a trade school. So I don't really have an allegiance to a school. So, and I try to, echo that when I'm doing games. You try not to be a homer, and part of being a national announcer is you got to be right down the middle. And if the game dictates it, then you go a little bit heavy on that team. But I love all the teams from our state, and I'm very proud of all of them. It's great to be a Michigander and see all these programs doing well.
Yeah, so we have a couple ties in together. I also went to school in Traverse City for a little bit before coming to Western. And
Central or West?
I went to West.
Okay, I'm a Trojan, Central. Well, when I graduated in the late 80s, there was only one school.
I was going to say, when you were there,
it was probably myself,
just the one school.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And then my wife, her parents know Owen's parents very well, too. I ended up running into them at the regional against Michigan State in St. Louis last tournament.
Yeah, so, 2 years ago. Yeah. They're great people, and he's such a cool story. I told this to First this morning. So last year when Western played the home and home was reversed last year. They played the second game at Yost. Excuse me, and I had Michigan I think the next 2 weeks. And so, Fred Pletch, my partner on BTN and a longtime friend, longtime college hockey guy, I said, you know what, Freddie, I'm going to come out and watch them play Western. That'll be a hell of a tilt. It'll be high tempo, high energy, a lot of draft picks, really good hockey. And, my girlfriend has known Owen's parents for a couple of years now. And I walked away and I went down to meet Dan and Judy. And Dan knew me from all the years of television. And we also have another mutual friend that I do some work for here in the Metro Detroit area. And I looked at his parents and I said, I don't know the inner workings of Pat's team, but your son's going to be a captain here. Like, just because the way he played, the situations he played, how hard he played, how smart he was, just watching almost like a scout that night, just watching the game and watching it from a totally different angle than I do when I'm calling a game, because you're focused on the play and you can't look around and watch, I'm going to watch this defenseman this shift, right? You guys understand that. So that was kind of cool to share with First this morning, and Owen knows that. And, big fan of him and a big fan of their team. And he's a glue guy for their team, man. He drives a ship, and I know he's excited like a lot of these guys are. It's interesting, though, guys. There aren't a ton of Michigan guys in this game. I mean, Michigan's only got 4 players from the state. They've got 10 from Ontario. So, but, you put the sweater on, you wear the colors, you understand it, and these guys know what it means on both sides.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Owen's got some big shoes to fill, filling in for Tim Washi, but I think he learned from a guy who came to work every day, and Owen has that same attitude, and you can see it progress here in his 3rd year from where he was as a freshman. And that team seems to be following him. Yeah, there was a little hiccup, the first game of the season, but I think that's bound to happen. You can't win every game. I mean, this team lost 5 last year, but they were 5 games against good opponents, and Ferris State wanted to rebound after a tough weekend at Miami, who's on an incredible run to start the year, already surpassed last year's season total for wins. And which is what we want. Like, we want every team in the NCHC to be good. We don't want to constantly be like, what is Miami doing? Can we get them going just a little bit? It makes the whole conference better as a whole when everyone's playing good.
Yeah, it's already a good enough conference. I mean, I think you see that too in the Big Ten. I mean, last year around the Christmas break, I mean, there's some wondering, like, you looked at Penn State and you're like, they're in trouble, man. But then they figured it out. And you hope that a program – I got a lot of great memories of doing games at Miami when Rico was there and just some of the teams they had. I mean, they're another one of those schools where you think of them and you think of hockey, and it's good to see them, like you said, Wes, getting a lot better this season here in a short sample size so far.
Yeah. Part of me feels like they had to get better with Rico coming back to the NCHC next year with his new team in St. Thomas.
That ain't no joke, man. They're going to be a player. I mean, they've got that new building. They're in a great city. He's done this before. He's built a program. He's taken it, built the arena, built the program. They were number one team in the country. And, there's a ton of talent in that state, as we all know. And I think they're onto something there with him and their program and what they're doing there too.
Yeah, they opened it up, I think, Friday night against Providence.
Yep.
And I'm actually kind of happy because that's, unfortunately or fortunately, kind of the closest one. No offense to the Gophers, really don't want to go to Gopher games unless I have to, which I am going to one Saturday night because they're playing my Bulldogs.
Right.
But I want to go see that arena and what they've done in the short span. You look at their first game ever as a Division I program. Was it 12-1, 13-1 against St. Cloud?
Something like that, yeah.
And it was like, welcome to the show, boys.
Right.
And then the next night, I think it was a 3-1 game, St. Cloud won, but St. Cloud was using it more as an exhibition. Fast forward 3-4 years later, they're at the top of the conference. They are there. They just weren't postseason eligible. Now they're going to be able to do that. And then they're joining the best conference in the nation historically.
Yep.
What are they going to do? Are they going to be like an Arizona State coming in, finishing second? I think they're going to be closer to be like an Arizona State than a Miami or a Colorado College. And even Colorado College, they've turned it around. But
yeah, they have.
Kind of going back to the point of Miami having a good start and surpassing their wins. I think no matter what sport it is, you always want your conference to be tough top to bottom because it makes your team better, but it also makes for entertaining games no matter what week you're playing. And that's what we all want. Sports are entertainment. That's what we all want. We need to have these fun games going on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Wes has got a Lions hat. You got a Vikings hat. I mean, look at that division, for example. I mean, last year it was insane, right? I mean, everybody made the playoffs. And, I think, the 9 seasons I spent doing that league, that was one thing that I did enjoy a lot about it because you never knew. I mean, back in the early going of the NCHC, Miami was good for, I want to say the first 4 years, maybe 5. And then they had the drop off. And then it just went south, and then the next year Rico was gone, and Colorado College couldn't get it figured out. Mike Havlin came in, tried, they couldn't get it going. Chris Mayott's done an amazing job there, getting them relevant again. St. Cloud, I mean, they elevated their game. Obviously, Sandy and Duluth, what they did was, and you mentioned it earlier, Mike. Like to me, they would have won 3 in a row. They had the team, and it sucks. I mean, I'm still ticked off that we didn't get a Frozen Four in Detroit because of that. But that whole time changed a lot for all of us in life, and everyone's got a story about how they were affected by COVID. So, yeah, I mean, it's great to see. Again, I want to see, number one, the teams that are in our state here in Michigan be good. And certainly I'm doing the Big Ten now. Don't do much of anything in the NCHC anymore. I wish I could. I wish I could come do Western games, to be honest with you guys. I'd love to get back in Lawson in that place. But, I want to see, whatever conference I'm working in. I only do about 10 or 12 games a year now. And I do a lot more rugby than I do anything. That's just kind of the way the wave has gone for me in my career. But, I can tell you, I get so excited when I get a schedule and say, hey, these are your 10 games or 12 games or whatever it is now. And, I'm still like a little kid, even though I'm north of 50 now. So it's always going to be near and dear to my heart. And, I've told a lot of friends, if I'm 70 and they're still letting me call college games, I'm there. It's part of it's in my blood. I grew up wanting to play in college hockey, was never good enough. Realized at a young age I wanted to be a broadcaster, and so I rode that wave, and here we are. So, but I just love the game. I love the sport, and love to see these small schools where it means everything, have success with it.
You kind of touched on it a little bit, but what was that transition like for you guys in the booth going from CCHA to the NCHC? I mean, you guys got familiar with the teams that you were calling, but now there's kind of a new crop and some teams that have long storied histories, the North Dakotas, the Denvers, but you're losing some of the other big schools in Minnesota or in Michigan State.
Yeah.
It's a step up for a lot of people too.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, like you mentioned North Dakota, like I'd never been to North Dakota. I'd never experienced going to the Ralph and never experienced going to Grand Forks. And if you've never been, if you're watching, it's something, if you're a hockey fan, I'm sure you guys have both been there probably more than once. You got to go there. You've never been there?
I got to get there too.
Wow. Neither one of you have been there.
Yeah. I'm working on
it. You guys got to go, man. You got to go. But, first of all, to finish that point, that was kind of cool. Was it, I'm going to be honest. I mean, was it a bummer that I went from 20 minutes away from Yost, 45 minutes up the road from East Lansing, an hour 10 to Bowling Green, 2.5 to Notre Dame, a little bit farther to Miami, certainly Western. Those were places I did games. I mean, I get my truck and I drive and I'm home that night. Where then it was get on a plane, leave Thursday, you're gone Friday, you do the game, you get out of town Saturday. It's 3 days to go do a game. So for me, doing what I do for a living, that changed for me all those years. But it became life to me. That's what I did for a dozen straight years. Was I was literally on a plane for 10 months out of the year every week because I was doing not only hockey, I was doing football, I was doing lacrosse, I was doing basketball. That's what I did. And I look back at it now, I'm like, I don't know how I did it. and trust me, boys, I wasn't flying a private jet either. So, I did fly a lot in first class, but still it's a grind. I was divorced, helping raise a son. And so that was a bit of a challenge. But I love my time in the league, man. It was awesome. And, I was thinking, I said to First today when we got on the call, I said the last time I did a Western Michigan game was in the bubble. That's the last time I've called the Broncos. So it's been basically 5 years because I went in that bubble. I think it was the day after Thanksgiving, and I was there until 3 days before Christmas. So it's been a long time since I've had a chance to see the Western Michigan Broncos on the sheet that I'm calling the game on. I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, and that was a team that had a lot of potential going into that year, and unfortunately, Brandon Bussey, who's now made his NHL debut and has a couple of wins in the big league, but he goes out in the second game of that series.
I was doing that game, yeah.
Oh, I just ruined the whole season.
Oh, they gave up 10 goals that night, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Andy, the next day we get on the call. He's like, who gives up 10 goals? How the hell's that happen? But yeah, no, it's a great point, Wes. And that was a really good team. They had some really good players on it. And yeah, it derailed a lot of things that year for a lot of programs.
But how was that experience for you guys? I mean, you go from traveling around, enjoying these ruckus barns like Ralph, Lawson, Denver can get it going every once in a while too. There being you, Dave, a couple camera guys, and Shireen hanging around it with some cardboard cutouts.
Well, Shireen wasn't there with us, unfortunately. And just for the record, I knew Shireen like 10 years before Dave even knew her. We were colleagues working here, and I've known Shireen a long time. So it was awesome, man. I would have done it for 3 months, and I say this with all sincerity and tongue in cheek. I mean, if it would have been 3 months, I might have had to sneak my girlfriend in, but we made it a month. No, it was incredible, man, because it was hockey 24/7. That's all we did. I mean, I hung out with Jake Brandt every night. Schloss was in the room hanging every night, man, and Dave, and we were Alex was in there too, all four of us. And, it was a cool experience. I remember watching the NHL bubble earlier in the year. There were the two bubbles they had, Toronto and Edmonton. I'm like, man, I looked at my girlfriend. I was like, man, I want to do that. I hope they do that in college hockey. And, I was in, I was in the last year of my contract at CBS. I was there for 13 years under contract for 10, and it was promised a new deal. COVID happened, 6 months. I didn't work. Yeah, we're going to bring you back. No contract. We're going to pay you half the money. We're cutting your benefits. So I'm basically a freelancer. And I said, well, I want to go in this bubble. Do I have your blessing? And they're like, no. And I said, I'm going. Because at that time, they had no guarantee of what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to work or not. I mean, I had money. It wasn't like I was broke, but I love what I do. And I really wanted to do that bubble. And, I initially didn't really say a whole lot about it, but I'm fine talking about it now, and that's the truth. They didn't like it. I did it, and I found out 2 days before Christmas that I wasn't going to be used there anymore through a text after 13 years. So, I made the choice, and I had to live with it, and I have no regrets, man. That was one of the coolest things in my career that I've done, was doing that bubble. Just for my love of the game. That was something else First talked about a lot today. He's like, yeah, this guy, like, I got some notes here in front of me, just random names. Like, yeah, Nearing loves hockey. Sharp loves hockey. McKenzie. He's like, everybody loves hockey, right? We all love hockey. But, like, when it's there, man, and it's like what you care about, like, I just love the game. And that was really, those reasons were really ultimately, guys, why I did that. And like I said, it was one of the coolest things I've done in my career. It really was.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I was for sure, but a lot of other people were bummed out when it turned over to Alex, who did a great job. Don't get me wrong, like with Dave. But I think a lot of people were kind of like, he's the North Dakota guy. So when a North Dakota game's coming on, it's going to be a different call for him or whatever. But he does a great job no matter who's on the ice.
He does.
But a lot of fans were bummed out that it wasn't you and Dave anymore, and Dave was the guy that they kept around. That again does a great job. But it was your guys' chemistry that made the games a lot of fun, especially if they were games that, like that Western game where what we're watching on the ice is not quite as entertaining as we want it to be, but you guys were providing some entertainment of your own.
Yeah.
So we missed out on that the last couple of years, but
yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, Dave and I spent 10 years in a booth together and, countless times on the phone. We're very good friends. Like I said earlier, I've known Shireen, a long time. And, the thing that I've always said to people is we all knew our lane, right? We knew our lane. I knew Dave wanted to do what Dave wanted to do, and I knew I had to call the game, right? And it was my job to get us there in between, to weave in Shireen. And it's I'm thinking here, man. I've worked with a lot of great people, and I don't want to sell anybody short, but there's only one other group that I've worked with that I would even put it in the same breath with, of the chemistry. And for me, guys, the most important thing about that was it wasn't the three of us just showed up and did what we did. We spent time on the phone. We were actually friends. We cared about each other. We loved each other because we'd all been through our own stuff, whatever it was, right? As life is, And the only other group that I would say that would even rival that for me would be the 4 years I spent with Jay Feely and John Triffin doing college football at CBS. Those two guys, the chemistry we had was very similar to what Dave and Shireen and I had. And we all knew our role, and we did our job. We all prepared in our own ways. We all had our own sense of humor. We all had certain things. Yeah, I want to get this into the show, or I want to get this in. Dave was always getting in shout outs for coaches, and, but that's Dave. That's what he does, man. He works so hard. And Feely was that way too. And Johnny Shriffen was, kind of coming up and into his own then. But we just had so much chemistry. So it's something I'll always cherish, man. I spent 10 great years with those guys. And I mean, I couldn't watch the games for a couple of years because I sat in that seat for, 12 years at CBS, calling games. And it was difficult. I couldn't do it. And just mentally, it was hard. I'm grateful that, the Big Ten Network said, hey, yeah, we love your work. And, I won't lie. It's cool going to Michigan. It's cool going back to state. It's cool going wherever I get to go. Those are places that, I cut my teeth as a play-by-play guy in when I started with Comcast Local, were Michigan and Michigan State. I mean, I was doing 15 games a year in both buildings. I mean, those were the days, man. I was doing 60 games a year in college hockey, and I didn't have to drive more than 2 hours. It was great. So, yeah.
For broadcasting then, I don't know exactly. Did you ever do anything on your own, or were you always with a partner? Because I know, especially a lot of the radio guys, I know TV versus radio, you have to describe more on the radio.
Yep.
You're painting the picture for the listener versus TV. But what were the differences for you if you did anything on your own versus having to weave in other people that you're doing? Because I know Bruce Siskey, we've had him on.
Yeah, Bruce is a great guy. I love Bruce.
Gets a little passionate sometimes, but I love listening to him.
I think he's still upset about the hit on Pionk, by the way.
Of course he is. But every once in a while he'll have an analyst with him, but typically he's by himself. Differences in trying to go back and forth, or weaving in everybody versus being on your own all the time.
Well, to answer your question, Mike, so twice in my career I've basically been the play-by-play guy and the analyst. So the first time was in the American Hockey League. I was there for 2 years with the Lake Erie Monsters. We were Colorado's farm team. Television, I had a partner. I had an analyst, Jock Callender, was a longtime minor league player. He ended up getting up with the Penguins, won a ring in the early 90s. Jock's been a Cleveland legend forever. But the radio games I did on the road, I did all of those alone, and it is different. And then in 21, I got hired by Russian TV America, and I took the job in D.C., and I will say this without hesitation, it is the best job I ever had, the best people I ever worked for, and I made more money than I've ever made calling games from Russia in the Russian in the KHL from a studio that was literally 2 blocks away from the White House. And I lived a block from the White House. And I did those alone. And, to your point, it's easier in a way because you don't have to weave in and bring in, or as I call it in television, landing planes. Like, all right, I got to get Dave in here. Okay, Carlos, our producer or whoever, hey, get on to Shireen. Like you're landing planes. You're like running the air traffic control tower, right? That part is for me as a broadcaster, that's a challenge. Like it's fun. Like you thrive in that because you get through some of these crazy sequences and, a goal scored, then you get a big hit and a penalty happens or whatever's going on in the game. And I love that. I thrive in that chaos of television and you got somebody talking in your ear, hey, do this, do that. Hey, go here. We're counting you down to 10 or whatever. There's so much going on that people don't know about. And I love that. Now, conversely, yeah, again, calling it solo, you don't have to worry about that. You can just call. What I found myself doing was I let the game breathe a lot more. And I didn't need to talk as much. I still do a few things here and there. I just did this was about a month ago. I did a rugby match, an international from here in my studio that was played in Chile with Samoa and Chile. And it was incredible, man. It was just, the crowd was nuts. It was on a world feed and they wanted an American voice and they didn't give me an analyst. And I'm like, no problem. I know the sport well enough now. When I first started, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But after 5 years in the sport. So, yeah, I mean, long-winded answer, but, I like both, but I honestly, to answer it directly, I'd prefer to be working with a crew. That's because it's just, we call it TV magic, man. And when things are happening and, the crew's singing and the truck's singing and the announcers are singing, man, it's a beautiful thing.
And I mean, I will say I have asked a little bit selfishly because I've done very, very minor broadcasting locally. My dad, he did it for, I don't know, 30 years for Virginia sport.
Yeah.
And I hopped in a little bit, did some basketball play-by-play because, all honesty, I was a pumpkin pusher. I played basketball. I was one of the very few that didn't play hockey in Evelyn.
How did that happen? I gotta interject. Huh? How did it happen? How did that happen?
Basically, I played both growing up, and in basketball, we lost about 3 games a year, and in hockey, we won about 3 games a year.
Okay. So it's about winning.
Yeah, I wanted to win.
Got it.
But I still reffed hockey growing
Okay.
up. Still know how to skate. And then ended up a guy that would do broadcasts for Grand Rapids. Well, he eventually ended up in Grand Rapids.
Mm-hmm.
He needed somebody to be an analyst for the Thanksgiving tournament between Eden Prairie, Edina, Grand Rapids, and Elk River. His guy couldn't make it down. So then I was the analyst for the hockey. And I was trying to, circling back to what you were saying, watching it as a fan
Yep.
or a scout versus the broadcasting.
Yep.
I was trying to fixate on certain players and see what's going on, because that's when Middlestad was, I think he was still a junior, and Michael Sullivan was a senior at Eden Prairie.
Yep.
So
Gotcha.
I'm watching these. Micah Miller was still playing for
Loved
Grand
him. Loved him, man. Great player. Great dude.
Zach Stayskell, I think, was a young freshman goalie that ended up coming in and playing.
Okay.
The brothers from Elk River, they were playing. There was so much talent in this
Talking about
tournament.
the Perbix boys?
Yeah, the Perbix kids.
Yeah. Nicky's a good kid too. Not a kid
And
anymore,
watching them play, I was finding it hard as a young analyst to describe what was going on, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had no coaching whatsoever.
Right.
So I'm still trying to gather, how does this work, and how was my dad so good at this? Because I mean, he called Matt Niskanen's games. He called,
Nice.
I think, Matt Cullens, Dustin Bufflin when he was in juniors.
That's cool.
There's all that. I get curious about this because another point you made, the chemistry. You can tell with the announcers if there's that chemistry or not,
Yep.
and if they have worked together.
100%.
And Alex now has built that with Dave, that they work so well together. But Gino Parrish and Jim Rich,
Yeah.
and St. Cloud,
Yeah.
you can tell they've worked together a bunch.
Yeah.
They can bring things in. Um, it makes a difference. And no offense to the Big Ten, but Corey Provis with basketball and football, sometimes you can tell he just hasn't worked with those guys. I listen to him all the time with the Twins. I would listen to him on the radio, now TV broadcast. You can tell when he has chemistry with the person.
Oh yeah.
When he doesn't.
Yeah.
And it makes the broadcast that much better.
It does. It's like working with Fred. I've worked with a lot of people, and Fred's been doing this stuff longer than I have. And college hockey's got me by 4 or 5 years, I think. Not that that matters, but just to show his longevity. And we just read off each other, man. Like, again, I think one of the things, and that's why I mentioned, like, when you asked me about crews I've worked with, and I gave you those two, me, Dave, and Shireen, and then me, Feely, and Shriffen. Like, we always talked. We always knew we could read each other's minds, right? We knew. I could look at Dave and I knew where he wanted to go. And I remember, and I'd have a note, I'd have an asterisk or something by, I don't know, Trevor Olson, whoever it was from North Dakota. Yep, he's got something on him. And he'd do something, bam, right to it, let him go. And it was the same with Feely. And one of the things that made us so good on the air together was we had the chemistry, we had the love, we had the passion for what we were doing, but we were friends too. And I worked with a lot of people, not a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people. I worked with some people that it wasn't fun. I would be, like I am, happy, positive, want to have a great time, want to be a pro. And some were like, all right, man, I'll talk to you next week. And I hated that. Like, I had an analyst in football, and I won't name him. It wasn't Kevin O'Connell. I love Kevin. Kevin's one of my favorite people in the world. He respected my humor for Tommy Boy. That's why we got along so well. My stupid movie knowledge quotes. But no, and I'm not going to name the person, but it wasn't fun. It was not fun for me. It was one season, and it wasn't fun. It was a grind. And, I'd show up, and I felt like I was just talking to a wall. And so that chemistry is so important. And, if you can become friends with people, man, it makes it so much better. And that's what Dave and Shireen and I did, and Feely and Shriffen and I did. And that's why those are my two all-time crews that I've ever worked with.
Tommy Boy is my hands down favorite movie. I know every line of that movie.
So do I.
if there's no TV, if like power goes out, I can watch that movie in my head and laugh at all the right times.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I raised my son on that and Adam Sandler movies, and I took my son, not this past, I think he was here a couple weeks ago in Detroit, but 2 years ago I took my son to see him, and I'm not gonna lie, Wes, when he did the Farley song, man, I literally cried. I cried.
Oh,
I cried the day Farley died. I was in my, what was I, my late 20s, I think. Yeah, I love Chris Farley, man. It's just a shame.
it's hard not to.
My wife knows Tommy Boy. She's seen it once. She knows the movie better because
that's impressive.
I know the movie so well.
Because you quote it all the time, right?
All the time.
It's like my girlfriend with Seinfeld. She's like, you got to be talking Seinfeld. She'll hear me texting somebody. I'm like, yep. I waste more time on Facebook in a Seinfeld group I'm on than anything I do on social media. I'm just going to come clean, boys. I have way too much knowledge in my head of Seinfeld and movies like Tommy Boy, movies like Big Daddy, The Water Boy, you name it, Happy Gilmore. But that's what keeps me young, man. So I'm never going to change that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for my daughter to get that age where I can show it to her for the first time. She's about to turn 3 in February, and I'm like, all right, where's the age here? Yeah.
All right, so I got a quick story there since you mentioned that, and I've mentioned him a couple times or more than a couple times. So Jay Feely's son Jace, who's now trying to become a pro golfer. He was a kicker. He went to Arizona State, then he went to Colorado. I think he's 23 now. So this was an awesome weekend. So Feely was working sideline on the A crew with CBS. Minnesota, it was a Vikings game, Mike, where Prater nailed the field goal on Thanksgiving. I'm not trying to inflict pain, but it was that game. So
we don't like kickers here.
I know. I'm sorry. So, who, by the way, looks exactly like Nick Swardson, by the way, Matt Prater.
Oh, God.
Right. So I'm Feely's runner for that game. I'm his runner, and it got me and my son Luke on the field all game, right next to Jay. So we do that game. We leave. We're going to do Kenny Galladay. If you remember, Kenny Galladay was at Northern Illinois. What turned out to be his final college game, a Black Friday game, Northern Illinois at Kent State. There's like 500 people maybe in the stadium, freezing cold. From there, we go to Columbus, and I go to my first ever Michigan-Ohio State football game. Feely had great seats, obviously kicked there. So on the way from Kent, Ohio, to Columbus, Luke's in the back seat. My son was like 15 at the time. Yeah, I think he was 15. Jace is like 12 or maybe 13. And I hear Jay say, well, my dad's never let me watch Tommy Boy. And Feely's in the front, and I turn and I'm like, dude, you have failed as a father. I hand Luke my phone. I go, here, plug it into the thing, and they watch Tommy Boy in the back of my truck. Yep.
Yeah, I think my dad says that's one of the few movies that my grandfather absolutely laughed out loud to.
Nice.
And it's such a good movie. That one and Black Sheep is a solid second tier or second back up to Tommy Boy.
Oh my God, that's so true, Wes.
But I'm just thinking, you and my dad, you get along because my dad probably has seen every Seinfeld episode a couple hundred times.
Love it.
And then one that sticks out with me is I listen to the Power Trip Morning Show every day here in the Twin Cities, and one guy said frog is his favorite animal, and so they play frog. Frog is wrong.
Yep. Yeah, that's a classic, man. There's so many good episodes. Paul Caponigri, who's a buddy of mine, and he does studio and some games for BTN, played at Ohio State. Like, him and I literally communicate in Seinfeld. That's all we text. We just text Seinfeld quotes, and everything always comes back to Seinfeld. So, but we've probably gone down a road you guys didn't think we would go down here. So I apologize for that.
We're going. We don't need roads. It's fine.
Get yourself a new map.
Yeah.
Have you ever met Trevor Gorsuch?
No, but I remember him. Maybe I did, but he was a goalie, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What was he there with the Frank the Tank?
Yep. Right near the end, or I think his senior year was maybe Frank's freshman year. They were really not a lot of crossover, but we've had Trevor on quite a few times. Our big buddy back here. There he is.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Literally, if we were on a road trip with our conversation with Trevor, the right direction is gone within about 15 seconds.
So we've done good tonight then.
You know the map from a Goofy movie when it opens and then you just see the squiggle of them trapped? That's a conversation with Trevor.
Yeah,
He's the greatest guy.
I don't know. I don't think I talked to him a ton back then. I was probably talking more to Frank. But yeah, I do remember him when he played there. Yeah, I remember the name.
He's a good dude. He's got some stories of his time under Coach Murray that he's regaled us with a few times.
Here's a funny one for you. So this was in the Comcast local days, like year 1, year 2 of Andy. And our producer, and I'll name him because I love him, and he's a great dude, and I did a ton of games with him with Comcast local, Ed Kultz. So Ed's claim to fame was he was the director the night that McCarty went after Claude Lemieux. He was directing that game. So he would always get in my ear because we'd pre-tape these, interviews it was in the skate rental room there, a little bench there when you come in the end of the rink where the truck is. And that was like our little backdrop. We put the little Comcast backdrop up, and Andy would always come over and do the interviews. And I loved Andy personally. I loved him. He was very much like my dad. And I mean that in the sense that he was very hard. He was very stern. You knew what you were getting. And if you pissed him off, you knew, right? I mean that with all respect. But he had a caring side too. So Ed would always get in my IFB and my earpiece and say, yeah, ask him who's starting the net. Ask him who's starting the net. Like as I'm wrapping up. And I was like, all right, Andy. Like the first couple times I fell for it. I was like, who are you going to start with in goal tonight? Whoever comes out first, Ben. I did it twice, and I never did it again. I just ignored Ed. I just ignored him. But, no, I loved Andy, and he was great. I think it was Shannon Hogan. I was working a game. It might have been the tournament, actually, Wes, we were talking about earlier, the 2012 one when DeKaiser and the boys won at the Joe. And she made a comment to him about, yeah, well, your third line is, playing really well. And he's like, well, what line is that? And she's like, well, the third line. He goes, that's not our third line. Just because they're listed third doesn't mean that's our third line. Yep. Like he had those ways about him, man, that were just, it was kind of funny in a way. If you didn't understand hockey and know the game, like you wouldn't appreciate it, but you guys do. And I think most out there watching, or maybe remember that, certainly do. So, but I loved Andy. He was a good man to me all those years.
Yeah, and that's a phrase that Firsch has carried over and is used quite a few times too. Just because they're first on the list doesn't mean they're the first line going out. It's whoever's playing the best that night might get a few more shifts than another line, or might be putting up points a little bit quicker than who you might expect. So they're not in any particular order, and we know who our first line is, and you may not. So
yeah, I mean,
and that carries that over for sure.
Yeah, sorry there. And yeah, and that's one of the beautiful things about what he's done and their team this year. Fred brought up today when we were on the call with Firsch and said, nobody and this includes Michigan at this stage of the season, nobody on either team is like really anywhere near the top of TOI, of time on ice. So that shows you the balance and it shows you the depth of, I know you guys care about Western Michigan. It shows you the balance and depth of both schools, but it certainly shows you what Pat has done and built in 5 years now he's been there. I mean, it's impressive, man. It really is. It was so good to see him today and hear his voice and you just feel him through the call, and I'm looking forward to seeing him and Hertz and JJ and the rest of their guys Thursday before the game, and seeing him play live and in person, man. I watched both games last weekend, and I certainly the Friday game was a bit more of a challenge, but this Ty Henricks kid, man, holy smokes, he's a problem. I mean, he is a really good hockey player. There were a lot of guys that jumped out. Last year, obviously, I watched them as much as I could in the tournament. Bummed I couldn't call him in the tournament, but that's just how things go. But him and Nearing, I mean, they're big rigs, man. They're really good players, and their skill is off the charts, man. I mean, this is going to be – I told Freddie today, I go, give me a 5-4 OT game, man. Just let me have it. Like, I want it bad. Yeah. That's what I want, man. I want scoring. I want a thrilling finish, selfishly as a broadcaster. And I think we could get that, guys. I think this game is going to be absolutely insane. I mean, both these goaltenders are just incredible. I mean, it's a World Junior preview, man, for my money. Both these guys. I mean, it's going to be insane.
Yeah, no, Hampton's played extremely well since taking over net.
Yep.
Michigan's one of the few teams that handed him a loss last year, so I think he wants
Yep.
to recoup that in that building.
Yep.
But Ty reminds me quite a bit of Washi, other than I think he's got a little bit better of a shot. But he plays a big, heavy style. He's able to get in the boards and really kind of hold people down. Makes great net front presence when he gets there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's got a little bit better of a release on his big shots, a little more oomph to his clapper. But definitely plays a similar style to what Tim was playing, and I think carries over that mentality. And then Nearing's another kid who's just the puck's on his stick. You never know how he's shooting it, but it's going to get past you in a hurry. And he tallied up a ton of points at the end of last season, so hopefully he'll get going here. And the big thing for me coming out of this weekend is Western's got to figure out that power play. You can't go 0 for 10 on a weekend and expect to compete with the big teams or deep in a tournament. Like, special teams are what you need when you're playing these top ranked teams like a Michigan, Michigan State, a Denver. Like, you don't have to get a goal every time, but you got to find a way to bury one when the opportunity presents itself. And I mean, they had a ton of opportunities this weekend and couldn't cash in.
Yeah, no question. And I think they'll get better. I mean, I think, look, they've only played 4 games, so it's a small, it's not a huge sample size. I mean, I think that'll get better. There's too much talent. There's too much skill. I mean, like you said, with these guys, these big rigs they can put in front. And I love their skill. I'm just glancing down at my lineup here. And, some of the guys that, Valente really stood out to me. I think he's really good. This Bobby Cowan's got really good upside. He's going to be a really good player for them. And then who's the other guy I was missing there? There's an obvious one that I'll mention last here, but yeah, I guess those were the main guys. But the great storyline too is Whitelaw. I mean, coming back, and Fred and I've seen him for 2 years in the Big Ten, and certainly saw him a lot last year because I do more Michigan and Michigan State than I do any team in the conference. This kid can fire the pill, man. Like, he is legit. Like, he's a goal scorer. I mean, what do you have? 11 shot attempts on Friday, 9 shots on goal, I think it was. I mean, this dude's going to fire it every time it's on his stick. And, he left Michigan, goes to you guys 90 minutes down the road. He's going to come back inspired, playing with Owen and Wisdom if things stay the same for the weekend as they were last week. And that's a dangerous line. They got a great mix of everything, and just top to bottom. I mean, both these teams. I mean, Michigan scored 40 goals in 6 games. I know a lot are going to say, oh, they played Mercyhurst, they played Robert Morris, but you know what? They seem to be a different team this year, and again, a small sample size. They seem to be a lot more committed to defense, and I think the big thing that I've noticed with them, and just watching the games I've watched, they seem to have a pretty big confidence level in their goaltender. This Ivan Kovic kid, like your guy Hampton, is I think it's going to be the 2 guys in net in the World Junior. I mean, these guys are the real deal. Next to Augustine, and you got to put Hampton above Augustine at this point because he's won a national title in the college ranks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, best 19-year-old goalie in the country, man, and the other side, Ivan Kovic, same thing for his country. So, do we see a 5-4 game? That's just my wishful thinking because I love offense. Could I see 3-2 more realistic? I don't know. I mean, I just, it's probably more of a game like that, but you never know. It could be off the hook, and it could be 6-4. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, last year both games were extremely tight. I think the one at Yost was 3-2.
Yep.
Western kind of made a push late to get to that point. And
yep.
the Western defense, they cleaned up a lot in that Saturday game. Friday, I felt like their defense was a little flatter. But last year's defense was just something stupid. Like, the guys they brought in to secure that defense and really help bring along the freshmen who, stepped away after a year. Robbie Drasner was big on that defensive line. He now plays for the Kalamazoo Wings. Bobby Kramer, I don't think you can say enough about, like, just the position those guys came in and the leadership roles they put on that blue line, and really changed the way that blue line played, because that had been a little bit of a struggle for Western the previous couple of years. But they've definitely been improved, and they're getting better every game. So yeah, I personally, I think I could see it a little bit either way, depending on how much Michigan's able to get in front of Hampton and kind of chip away at some of those loose pucks that he's unfortunately been prone to leave on the ice or get away from him a little too far. That we saw in the national championship game. That was how BU got their goals, was just pucks that shouldn't have been there were there. But Western does a great job of keeping teams at a distance and allowing Hampton to really see the puck and even limiting the number of shots. I think that's a big thing too. If you're limiting the dangerous chances and giving a good goalie an opportunity to see the puck, you're going to end up on the winning end of a lot of games.
Yeah, he looks the part to me, guys. I mean, he, and I use Trey as another example. You watch him play goal, and he looks the part, man. Everything's right, pads, angles. I'm a forward, man. I'm not a goalie by any means, but like you can just tell, right? I mean, and I see that in Slukinski, and we talked to Ivan Kovic a little bit today, and he didn't have much to say. And I said, this is a pretty intriguing goaltending matchup. And I get it. What's he going to say? But, I really do. I think that's a very intriguing part of this game. Again, I'm going a little bit deeper with, U.S. World Junior goalie, Canada World Junior goalie. I think you're going to see it. I think they're going to be the guys. They're going to be massive in this game. And, again, I think Whitelaw he's going to come in here with a rocket strapped on his back, and he's going to be flying around. And, I think that's going to be big too. And, it's going to get real, I think, for both these teams, more real than it's been, right? Let's put it that way. It was a good sweep for Western last week. Michigan swept the Providence team that was ranked 7th. And then the other 2 teams out of Atlantic Hockey, they did what they should do to those teams, right? I'm not going to in any way disrespect it. Oh, they're playing. No, that's who they had. That's who they played. They did what they're supposed to do, right? Yeah, the Thursday game, that was a bit tighter. I don't think Michigan was as sharp as they would have wanted to be, but then they come out the next night and they clean them for 10. So both are dangerous teams, man. They really are. It's not like, to me now, it's not like it was 10, 12 years ago between these two programs where Michigan had 12 draft picks. I mean, Western's got 10 guys drafted, right? I mean, they got 1 million guys drafted. So, okay. I mean, their talent's better. They're responding. They're winning games. They're winning big games. They're winning when it counts, and they didn't do that for a long time with their program. And they've done it with Firsch, and it's awesome to see, man. And for me, I haven't done a game since the middle of March. The last game I did was hockey game, was Notre Dame at Michigan State. So yeah, man, I'm juiced. I can't wait for this game, and I'll be like a little kid on Christmas morning on Thursday.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. And Friday
Are you guys going?
Not Thursday. I work at a bar on Thursday night, but I'm gonna make sure they put it on all the TVs that I can get them to put it on.
Sweet.
I'll be watching Thursday. I'll be on Friday for sure, enjoying that. I'm sure the Lunatics will get there early and wrap around the building a couple times. Those monsters.
Be all painted up?
Oh, absolutely.
So I gotta ask, man. So how did that all start?
So the very first game, there was a football game. I think around might have been a noon kickoff. So there's football game, and then there was hockey.
What year?
09.
09, okay.
So my 3rd year at Western, my buddies and I were like, all right, we'll do the stupid college football thing, or football thing, and more so in general, we'll paint our faces for the game. My buddy painted his face like Ultimate Warrior. I had kind of like a hawk and animal thing going from the Legion of Doom. And so we're like, we know we're going to the hockey game later, and we're sitting there like, all right, we could go back and wash this off. Or we just go get in line at the ice arena now, and we leave this stuff on for about 12 hours, and we see how the night goes. So that's what we did. And it just went from there. And every home game, every away game, for the majority anyway, I paint it up, take about 45 minutes.
Respect, man.
Get there when I can and sit in my little seat and keep people a little bit away from me, which is nice because they're not sure what's going on with the face paint, and I get to enjoy the game.
That's why you can't get mixed up with a face painter. Yeah. That's a Seinfeld line if you don't know. David Putty.
You try walking around. Try walking around Nashville with this guy in his face paint.
I like to tell some people it keeps me on my best behavior.
But does it, Mike, or is he making that up? Does it keep him on his best behavior?
I think I was more of the problem that week.
I love the honesty, boys.
Yeah, I was being a babysitter.
That's awesome. That's great.
I had actually never met Wes in person.
Oh, wow.
We had become friends through a Facebook meme page, and we realized he likes Western, I like UMD. we're going to be playing video games talking about this anyway. Let's start this.
Okay.
Western was playing Northeastern down in Nashville. He goes, "What are you doing over Thanksgiving?" I don't know. Just maybe going to my family's. Want to go to Nashville? Yup. Because I love Nashville. So I flew out to Grand Rapids. He picked me up. We went down. We were supposed to go to I think it was Preds Avs was the game. The pipe burst in Bridgestone because Western was going to be playing there that night.
I remember that.
So we're walking up and down Broadway and stopping at different establishments and
sampling the wares. At least one of us was.
I was sampling wares. I've been there a couple times before.
Been in Nashville a few times. Whew.
Love the city.
Oh.
Figured out they were playing at the practice arena, so then we go there, and Wes is painting his face, and then the whole night we're going through drive-thrus. We're in the hotel elevator, and there's these like 12-year-old girls. They look at him, they're like, "Cool face paint." I'm like, God, why am I here?
Stop scaring the kid.
But that was fun. And that was the one time I will wear a Western jersey, just because I was supporting the guys.
That's cool of you. You're a good friend.
But I did want to switch gears because we have been talking about this old CCHA rivalry.
Uh-oh.
To the old WCHA rivalry that's happening this weekend, which I will be at Saturday.
Ghosts and dogs.
Yep. UMD and the Gophers, and two coaches that know each other very, very well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You were talking about depth earlier. The Plant Shagabe line, they've figured it out after a year. They've been dominant, but I haven't been able to watch as much as I'd like. I don't feel like we have the depth scoring that maybe the Gophers do. And then we have Guyon, who has seemed to play a little bit better. He was making a lot of freshman mistakes last year in net. You could tell the talent was there. He just wasn't quite comfortable enough to get where he needed to be. I don't really know what the Gophers have right now, but that depth scoring of UMD behind the Plant Shagabe, and then Hansen has been putting up a lot of points from the blue line. How do you see that series playing out as much as you might know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like closely following it. I mean, I would ask you this: how much is Pionk's little brother? Has he been good for them?
I think he's done fairly well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a case of Minnesota somehow, goes into Nodak last week and wins that game, and they've been just from afar, guys. Like I haven't like dove in and watched a ton of games yet with Minnesota, just because I don't have them at this point, but. They're trying to figure it out, man. I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, they don't, they have like 8 shots in that game at one point, and they had 2 or 3 goals. I mean, they're just Boston College held them to I think 15 that one game, the first game. It's been a bit of a struggle for them, and I think, I think Sandy's boys are going to go in with a chip, man. I mean, I just do, and. I think Bob's guys are still trying to figure it out. I mean, they lost a ton. I'm not making excuses. It's just reality. And, you can practice all you want, but until you get into game situations, you don't know what you have. You really don't know what you have. I think, in the case of the series we're talking about, in the game we're talking about here with Western and Michigan, you know what you got, right? Those programs they're rock solid this year. A lot of guys back. I mean, Minnesota with all the guys they lost. And all I know about Sandy's teams is they're always going to put forth a damn hard effort. And they're going to be hard to play against. And that's one thing I always liked about doing Duluth games. And, they're hard to play against. They're physical. They're going to make you pay. They're going to make you earn it. Is that a home and home?
No.
They're both at Mariucci.
I think they might both be at Mariucci. They flip-flop back and forth between doing home and home and then doing one a year, alternating years. Yeah. I know we did last week against Bemidji. It was a home and home. One thing the fans that they were complaining about, we lost the Saturday game to Augustana, and
yeah, I saw that.
I was seeing fan pages, how do you lose to Augustana? I'm like, you don't realize this Augustana program is following that St. Thomas path. Where they're getting very good very quickly. Same thing with Arizona State.
Yep.
And the benefit that they have is they have a USHL team in the same arena that they're playing in. So these kids that might not have been recruited previously, they can go in and say, hey, do you like where you live? And I like Sioux Falls. It's a nice city.
Yeah.
You can stay here for a little while longer and play college. And I'm like, you're not talking about a Miami of the past few years. You're not talking about a Stony Brook. You're not talking about a Long Island and no offense to the Atlantic.
Yeah. No, I get it.
You're not talking about those teams. This is a team that's playing these tougher opponents. It's not a bad thing to lose. And if you go back to even the national title years, the teams that UMD lost to, they weren't great opponents, but they lost to them. We lost to Miami how many years in a row? Because Wes would make fun of me. It happens. It's hockey. You never know what's going to happen, especially when Person was in net for Miami. The dude was making 50-some saves a night.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah, Ludwig, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
because then he spent his last year at North Dakota.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Augustana, like I know Garrett Raboyne a little bit. Great pedigree, great coach. And you're right. I mean, that's a similar program in the sense of St. Thomas, new barn. The cities are different, but coaches that I mean, Rico's proven that he knows how to build a program, and they were a minute away from winning the whole thing, obviously. And they were a player for, not a couple years, but they were a player for a pretty good part of a decade there in the mid 2000s into the late 2000s. So, I think Augustana can do that too. You wonder too about, I've wondered too about the NIL stuff, like how are those programs going to compete? But Western Michigan, I mean, they found a way to do it. Guys buy in. And, so I think those programs are going to just keep doing what they're doing, man. And I think I've said it for a couple of years, Augustana and St. Thomas they're going to be a handful for the rest of college hockey. They really are. They're good up and coming programs. Back to your guys, Mike, I'll always be a fan of Scott Sandlin, man. I love Sandy. He is one of the best dudes I've ever met. And I met a lot of them. But he's just a great human being. And I love what he's done. And, I have so much respect for their program, up there on the lake. And, it's cold. No one wants to be there, man. But guys want to go there and play, and they win. And, they've won more than most, and they've won 3 titles. So it's funny. I ran into I was at Michigan State last year. I think it was the game that State scored 9 on Minnesota. I think it was a Friday game, and I was scouting for the next night. And I'm standing there. I'm up there with some scouts, a couple guys from Omaha back in the day. And this guy to my right, and I keep looking at him. He keeps looking at me. And I was like, where the hell do I know this guy from? And it was Parker Mackay. It was like one of my favorite dudes, him and Susie.
Yeah.
The pride of Irma, Alberta, man. I love those guys. I was like, dude, I can't believe I didn't recognize you. And we ended up talking for most of the third period. But, I just have a lot of respect for their program. I always have and always will, man. It's impressive what Sandy's done, and that'll be a hell of a series. So I'll leave it at that.
And I do like one of the other things someone was complaining about. Oh, you can't rely on Hermantown and whatever.
Yeah.
The Northern kids home. Well, Hermantown, they're their own deal. I mean, I did a little bit of student teaching under the current head coach for Hermantown, but you had guys. Niskanen went there. There's
millions.
another from Virginia that I think it might have been Scott Kishel. You got Shagabe. You have the Plans. You had Adam Johnson, Scotty Perunovich.
Scott. Yep.
I knew both Adam and Scotty from playing youth tennis with them, and Scotty's always going to be a little shit to me. So what? You won the whole bakery. I knew you when the racket was bigger than you.
I need to correct myself. I said earlier about Siski. It wasn't Pionk. Maybe it was Pionk. It might have been both. But I think it was a hit that Perunovich laid on a Western guy in Duluth. And he was pissed about that for about a year. He might still be pissed about it. Am I right? Wasn't it Perunovich?
It might have been Scotty.
It could have been either one of them because they both had that same kind of – they kind of had similar styles, I guess. I'll leave it at that when it came to plays like that sometimes.
Yeah, but I think that also helps the program keeping the northern players up north.
For sure.
The one thing that has disappointed me is the student section over the last few years because I didn't go to UMD. I went to St. Scholastica, which Nick Wolf
Kotick went there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Kotick. I knew Brendan pretty well. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he went to I think he was at Scholastica for like a year or two.
Yeah, he went there for a year, I think, yeah.
And then now Nick Wolf is
Wolfie,
women's coach.
Is he really? He's done playing, huh?
Yeah. He's done playing.
I always liked him.
But we'd go and I was there and you had both the lower and upper bowl filled.
Oh yeah.
Now you turn the game on. If the lower bowl is filled,
it's an accomplishment.
Like I don't know what's happened with the environment up there as far as the student section, what they're doing. And that's why I want to get over to Lawson this year when UMD plays there in December. I'm like, I know I don't have many chances. I got to
go. You need to go. You need to go.
Wes, do you have anything else? Because I have one other thing that's completely non-hockey related.
So. I've got one that's completely non-hockey related either, or also. But first, I want to tell you my favorite Andy Murray story, who I've heard third hand, but I've also heard. I think you guys might have talked about it at one point. So
okay.
I think Sheldon Dries goes down with an injury, and Andy Murray says he has a lower body injury.
Loved Sheldon, still do.
And it comes out later that the lower body injury was to his like hand or wrist.
Of course.
And someone goes, "How's that a lower body injury?" And Andy goes, "Well, when you're standing up and your arms are hanging down, your hands are below your waist. It's a lower body injury." And he was messing with whoever the team was that was getting the injury report because well, if I say it's an upper body injury, they're going to smack your arms and your torso and they're going to try and play heavy upstairs. If I tell you it's a lower body injury, maybe you can skate through a couple sticks and bury one because they're not smacking your hands around the whole game.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's my favorite Andy Murray one. Just trying to just sneak anything past anybody that he could and play the game, the mental game of hockey.
Yeah, that was the old, Scotty Bowman school, man. Like he was so old school, man. And, like I said earlier, him and my dad are similar in a lot of ways. They do have the same birthday, so that's another way they're very similar. And I, whenever I'd see Andy on March 3rd or around there, I'd either say happy or belated birthday. And how do you remember that? I'd say, well, my dad has the same exact birth year and birth date as you. So I liked him, man. I mean, a lot of people, he rubbed some people the wrong way, but I love the guy. He was all business, and I loved talking hockey with him. And one of the things that always stuck with me, it was the first time I sat down with him when I came back from the American League. I was down there for 3 years, and I got divorced and needed to be back here in Michigan with my son, and went back to CBS and was doing stuff with Comcast. And I said, I remember it was something to the effect of, and it wasn't like in a snide way because you guys know my love for college hockey. I go, why college hockey? Like, why? You've done, you're not in the NHL. Like, why college hockey? He's like, well, he goes, I view wherever I'm at as the highest level I'm at in my profession, Ben. And he went into that, and I respected the hell out of that. And he also said, this is probably public, or maybe people knew from, stories or broadcast talking about it. Like, it was on his bucket list. He always wanted to coach in U.S. college hockey. And, I think he did a lot of good things for their program. And, as we've discussed, man, it's awesome to see what Firsch has done, man. It's just so awesome and so impressive. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, he took the baton from Andy Murray and stretched out the Bronco history into places it's never been before. So
he did.
Greatly thankful for both of those guys as a fan.
Yeah.
And then the last one, hockey related in your career, the press box at Lawson is 10 feet above the top
legendary
of the Lawson Lunatics. What is it like being that close to the student section? Because I assume in other places you're a little bit further away, but just when the games go in the Broncos' way, and that section that can be upwards of 2,000 students strong is just pumping energy into that building? What is that like? Or even when they're like, the game's going the Western way, but they just can't find a way to score, and then that goal comes, and you just feel all that energy release at once. What are those like being up above that?
That's what it's like, man. It's just you just feel this rush of energy, you know, and like I stand. I mean, you have to stand in that building. You know, I don't like sitting to call a hockey game. If I have the opportunity and I have, you know, there's a seat and I can stand, I'm gonna stand. Like I'm just into the game more. I'm up the booth. I'm throwing my, you know, like on the pod. Like I'm, you know, I'm speaking with my hands. I'm looking at my partner. We're shoving each other. Like, oh my God, you believe that? Like you just, that's just you're into the game and it gives you the great feel of it. I mean, there's trying to think, man. I don't think there's any other buildings that, I mean, at, you know, by way of comparison at Yost, I mean, you're above the fans, but you're up higher and the students are on the other side. So that's not the same. The fans aren't as loud as the students. I don't know that there's another environment like it that's so close, Wes. I mean, it's just, you feed off the energy. You just feed off everything. And, you know, I said to Wes, and I'm going to share this story. So Ryan Starman, I think he was like 13 or 14, and he was on the trip with Dave and Shireen. And I just kind of jokingly said, I said, and, you know, I got to know Ryan and Jared, Dave's kids, Dave and Shireen's kids. And I said, Ryan, man, you need to go body surf in the Lunatics, dude. And Dave looks at me and Shireen, she's like, what are you doing? I go, that would be so freaking cool, man. And he did it that night. And it was super cool. I videoed it because I let Dave come back from break, or Shireen might have come back from break. I think Shireen did because I think Shireen was down there in the Lunatics, and she did a lot of hits from down there. Really cool. It's just a great environment. And, you know, and the video's on Twitter somewhere, Ryan getting passed through like at a Pearl Jam concert, man. It was awesome.
Is he's the one that's working up with the UMD hockey team?
Yeah, with Sandy. Yeah, he's up there going to school.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, he pretty sure he aged out, and you know the playing thing didn't work, and you know that happens to more than it doesn't, right? I mean, fewer guys make it that, you know, to play college than or don't make it than what am I trying to say? Fewer guys make it than don't. So you know, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool to see him involved, and you know, with his parents and certainly his father, the genes, it's in the blood, man, of that family.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when I've seen Dave post on Twitter, and I'm
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh, smart dad, finally sending his kid to a good school,
to a hockey school.
Good hockey school. That's not.
Well, Jared went to UMass, so I mean, he was there. He would have been there. I think he was there when they won with McCarr. But yeah,
I don't like you, man.
I understand. I get it.
All right, and then not hockey related, but I think one of the things that I've been trying, or I wanted to pick your brain about the most, because you've had an interesting career as far as the sports you've called, and I don't think anything's more interesting, at least to me, than you calling the AWA or AWL, the Arm Wrestling League. What does Neil pick up and like? Because he comes across as like just one of the coolest human beings on the YouTube videos that he's doing and putting out, and working with that guy calling that sport.
Yeah, the WAL. That was a great time. I met Neil. He's a 3-time world champ, British world champ. Incredible guy and good friend. And I don't know how much golf you guys watch or how much you know about David Faraday. But he's very similar to David Faraday, and I mean that with sincere respect, where some of the things he says, the way he says them, like I couldn't get away with it. I'll just put it that way. I couldn't my mind doesn't work the way his mind works. But again, it's another example, I think, of, you know, knowing your lane. And on those shows, and I'm actually involved in some in a new series that'll be coming up later this year and into next year with Neil. They are shows where I don't really call any play-by-play because Neil is so good at it as an analyst, and that's kind of his shtick and his thing. So I'm more of the host. So I'm more of the setup guy. I'm more of the, you know, hey, here's the match. This guy's facing this guy, and here's the particulars, and you know, this and that, and giving out information, trying to, I guess, how do I say this? The human interest side of it, like getting to know they're called pullers in arm wrestling. getting to know the pullers, getting to know the athletes. I love Neil. He's a great friend. And I'm glad that we did a show in Denver. When was that? In August. And we're going to be doing another one here in December, and then hopefully moving into next year. But he's a hell of a guy, and we did an event for Brian Shaw, who's one of the world's strongmans. That's where maybe what you saw.
I've ended up in that rabbit hole on YouTube a couple times.
There you go. And like, funny story. So I'm sitting next to Brian at a production meeting, and it's like a 2-hour meeting, but it needed to be because the run of show was like 5 hours, for me and Neil doing the show. And it was part of Brian's event in Loveland, Colorado. And so he's sitting there, and I look over, and he's got like this big, huge Tupperware thing, and just nothing but steak and potatoes in it. And he's 400 pounds, and he's not fat. He's a
lean 400 pounds now. Like,
he's a lean, mean fighting machine, right, boys? So I just, out of the blue, there's like a side conversation in the meeting. I go, hey, man. I go, how much do you weigh? He goes, I weigh about 410. And I'm like, how many calories do you eat a day? He's like, about 25,000. Just shoving food in his face.
Yeah, that dude's
amazing guy. Yeah, amazing guy.
He's down to 410. I think his like competing weight when he was winning all the World's Strongest Man was like 485 or something stupid.
Yeah, well, he pulled in that event, and Eddie Hall did too. Eddie Hall, some may know his name from World Strongman. He's, those are the two, those are the top of the mountain guys in strongman. And I'd get into that if I could work with somebody like Neil. I'd work with that, and all the different stuff I've done, rugby, and I've kind of made a career out of that, being a niche guy, even like our sport of hockey, right? Hockey's not everyone's cup of tea, and not a lot of people can call it. And, I'm just happy to get another year, man. And, do 10, 12 games, whatever I do. And, it's a gift from above for me. I love the game, and it's given me so much. And, the fans, the players, the coaches, just all kinds of things that I could go on and on about of how special it is to me. That was honestly something I was, and a lot of people laughed at me, like when I was done at CBS, like, man, I don't know if I'll call college hockey again. And that broke my heart because I love it so much, and I grew up in Lansing. I grew up watching those great teams in the 80s at Michigan State. I idolized those guys more than I idolized the Red Wings. That's because I ride my moped out there from Holt, and we go out in the back, take sticks that were broken and play with them. And that's what I wanted to do. And, to be able to be, I think, 22 years calling hockey now, it's amazing, man. I love it. I'm very, very grateful for that. And really excited for Thursday, boys.
Yeah, I've definitely gone. I mean, the Red Wings will always be my team. I grew up in Warren when the Wings were destroying teams in the 90s and the early 2000s. But when I moved up to Traverse City, it was just kind of so far away that I fell out of it. And it was going to Western games and sitting in the student section at Lawson that, like, I got into hockey and then whittled it down to college hockey, and Western hockey is where my heart's at, and the team that I pull for over any, even though I've got, tons of Red Wing stuff and rock the Red Wings every day. So
wonder what nice. But solid.
So Western's number one, the Wings are a close second, and it was nice when they had the Kaiser, Witkowski, and Osterley from that 2012 team all playing in Detroit at the same time. That was pretty cool.
All great guys, man. I had a lot of time with those guys. One of the pods that I started with the former Gopher player, Mike Carmen. We haven't done a lot with it lately, but just for various reasons, my travel with other stuff with rugby, and Carmi's got a new job, and his wife's pregnant, and they're expecting a kid. So a lot going on. We're not done by any means. We've taken a little bit of a break until we both get a little more time. And, Danny was one of the first people that we had on. I think he was the third guest we had on. And, always liked Danny. He was so good to us. And, it was ridiculous how many times Starman would talk about him in a game. I'm like, dude, we get it. You're scouting him, man. Like, I'd say that with all kindness. I'm like, dude, we get it. Funny story, real quick. This involves Andy Murray. Maybe you've heard this. Danny validated it for me, though, on the pod that Carmi and I did with him. Mike Carmen's the former player that I was with in the American League and played for 5 years for Colorado, I think the Wilkes-Barre and Hershey. But anyway, so Andy's telling us a story one night. This is after, I'm trying to think when this was. It was a couple years into Andy's tenure. And Danny's, of course, a couple years into his time with the Wings. Or thereabouts, whatever, 2-3 years, whatever it was. So, what was the place called? The bar there, the Wayside, was that the place?
So there's a couple.
Going on.
Yeah, there's Wayside.
The one when you're going towards 94 or going towards, you go out of Lawson, come down, you make a right. The bar,
yeah, that
the
was
big
Wayside.
bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and frequented that a few times back in the day. I'll just leave it at that. And so the Oilers are in town. So Andy's telling us this story. And he's like, I got to tell you guys this story about Danny. And Dave's sitting in there, and Dave's pissed because when you hear the story, you'll know why Dave was pissed. So he's like, yeah, McTavish and Kevin Lowe and all these guys come into town, and they take Danny and his parents out and go have dinner at the Wayside, blah, blah, blah. And so they get done, and, they're like, yeah, we'll be in touch, great meeting you, blah, blah, blah. Handshakes, everyone gets in their cars. Danny pulls out first, and McTavish and Lowe are in the car behind him, and they call Murray, and they're like, there's no way we're getting this kid, is there? He's like, probably not. And I think it was McTavish that said, well, he's got a Red Wing license plate holder on his car. I don't think we have a chance.
Yeah, that dude got to live out his dream playing for his favorite team with some of his favorite players for sure.
No kidding, man. What a great dude. And, yeah, all those dudes are great, man. Jordan was always great, and Luke's just he's still playing.
Yeah, yep. He played overseas this last season. I don't think he's playing this year though. At least I haven't seen anything. I've seen him kind of bouncing around with his family on Instagram.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I don't know if he is or not, but last year he did. But I think you might be right, Wes.
And I know that he was here for the banner night, the opening night at Lawson. So
yeah, so many guys, man. Derek Rail and Squires, and I reconnected with Greg in the KHL when he was playing in Coonlin, and there were 5 or 6 guys that I reached out to that I did a lot of their college games, and they were great to me in the league, and were just awesome to reconnect with those guys. So a lot of great memories at Kalamazoo and Western, and yeah, just it'll always be special to me, man, in so many ways.
Yeah, like I said, you gotta make a trip to be a fan. Come to Lawson, maybe get a drink at Waldo's, the only bar on campus.
I got to go to another game there before it changes, because as cool as the new place will be, you're not going to have the same kind of charm. You'll never replace that charm that you have in Lawson. So I need to get over there. When I know it's coming near the end, I'll come over to a game. I promise.
All right, Mike, I'll let you wrap it up with what you got.
Yeah, I got
10:30 here.
One, first of all, I'm not really shocked that the story with the Kaiser had was involved with the bar, because Trevor has a story. Wes, the teleportation story.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, I just want to. I mean, I don't think he was in there getting bombed. I think he had dinner, but they were at the Wayside.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but still, it involves a bar.
Yeah,
we know hockey players can put it down.
Exactly.
But you were talking about niche sports, and that was kind of my my non-hockey question because of rugby.
Yep.
Do you first of all, do you do 15s or do you do the 7s?
Both.
And, both.
Both. Yeah.
So which one do you like better? And then what's the biggest match that you've called? Because my ex-girlfriend, she studied abroad in Ireland twice, and she got me into watching Six Nations. And so if I remember it's on, I will get up and I will watch Ireland and cheer for them.
Man, this is hard for me to answer, man. You really put me on the spot, Mike. I like 7s more from the sense of the game moves. It's more in my, I guess, wheelhouse because of my background in hockey, because it's fast. You can get a break at any moment. I always tell people here in the States, a lot of my friends, like, that they like watching it. But 15s is so convoluted because you got 30 people out there, right? And a lot of times you don't know what's going on. You don't know what's happening in the scrum. You don't know what they called all the time. The mics may not work. The better shows, they work. The international shows I've done, all the mics work. But I like 7s from that standpoint. The matches are quick. I actually just got booked on one the other day in the spring for the World 7 Series. I'm not sure where it's at, but somewhere in the States they haven't announced. So I'm looking forward to that. I really like the 7s, man. I like 15s in the sense that when a side is connected and they're playing well, it's like hockey when guys are stringing tape to tape passes together, right? It's the same kind of thing for me. seeing that, and I love the physicality of it, the pace of it, and the precision of it. So I didn't really answer your question. I gave you an answer on both sides because I like them both.
No,
And then
it's fair.
in terms of so I started doing it in 19. I was at CBS, and they're like, we're going to put you on a network show. And I got one network show in 13 years there, and it was the Major League Rugby final in 2019. I go, great. I get a network rep. My dad can hear me read the 60 Minutes promo, and I don't know shit about rugby.
Yeah.
I studied for a month. I still didn't understand it. The guy that I worked with, Brian Hightower, is a former Eagle for the U.S. He looks at me. He goes, I know you're an established, polished broadcaster, blah, 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 blah. Get the names and the pronunciations and the numbers right. I got you. And I was freaking hooked. It came down to a rolling maul at the end to win. Then COVID happened. They only played 5 matches. They were using their guys. CBS was doing it. I was still at CBS. I left in 2021. I got the job in D.C. with Russian TV America. That went away when Putin invaded Ukraine. Everyone dropped the network. I was out of the best job I'd ever had. So I kind of started over. They reached out. I started doing the Major League Rugby League for the last 5 years. Done a ton of matches on there. Last 2 years, I got involved with World Rugby internationally, which is a huge thing for me. I'm very proud of that because international sports are there's nothing like it. I mean, my son said to me, he goes, Dad, you've done some cool shit in your career, man, like tons of cool shit. But he goes, it's so cool to hear you calling an international match. So that means a hell of a lot to me. That's where I'm at. Biggest match. I mean, I've done a lot of the U.S. matches the last 2 years. I mean, I don't know, man. Like biggest name match, I would say would be, I mean, you could say USA Scotland or USA England, but England played us with their third string in DC in June and smoked us by like 40. But we're building. We qualified for the World Cup. Did the Pacific Nations Cup in September for World Rugby. That was cool. Fiji, Japan, Samoa, Tonga, Canada, the U.S. Just really cool experience, and just going to keep riding the wave, boys.
Yeah, Tonga, they're usually pretty good solo with Smollens.
Wow, look at this guy, man. Wes, did you know he had such a rugby background?
I did not. Surprise to me.
That's impressive.
I mean, I've been there with my ex-girlfriend. There are a few Irish pubs around, and one is actually right next to the Target Center, Kieran's.
Okay.
They'll open it up for the Six Nations, and
it's awesome.
8 a.m. Well, 6 a.m. if you're going to watch live. 8 a.m. They have Irish breakfast. They got Guinness. You can do whatever. So I've done that too. It's just so much fun. Even if I don't quite understand it, I know the basic premise of what's going on. And
exactly.
It's so much fun to watch.
Keep watching. It's like Alona Mar said when she won the ESPY. She's like, watch it the first time, you won't understand it. Watch it again, you still won't understand it, but keep watching. The World Cup's coming here, and that's certainly something I want to do. And, the way things are going with World Rugby, I just have to keep doing what I'm doing, and I believe I'm going to get a chance. And I might get a chance in Australia in 2 years because the U.S. is qualified now, and that would be one hell of an honor. I mean, I always dreamt of, calling the Olympics in hockey. That ship has sailed. Maybe I'll get to call the Olympics in rugby. That would be incredible. And, something I never dreamt of or thought would happen in my life. But, I'm one of those people, guys, that, I tell young people in broadcasting all the time, man. They ask me for advice, and I'm like, don't say no. Don't be afraid. I learned from guys like Fred McLeod, rest his soul. Freddie was a guy I learned from in the mid-'90s when I started. Ray Lane, who just passed away a couple months ago, worked here in Detroit. Those were my mentors, and that's what they told me. They said, don't ever say no. If you don't know, figure it out. Learn how to, it's like the hockey term, figure it out, right? Learn how, ask questions, learn how to do it. And, a lot of people say to me, like, well, you're never not working very long because you're versatile and you can do things and you don't say no and you're willing to learn if you don't know. So, I'm grateful for that. Those are traits my dad gave me. So, really appreciative of that.
All right, last question, and then we'll let you go because I was thinking about it when you were talking about all the cool stuff you did.
It's cool, man.
Did you call the GLI Outdoors at Comerica Park? Were you on that one?
No, I wasn't. No, I was I was in Cleveland. I was in the American League. No, I didn't get to do that one.
Okay, I think it was just straight Fox Sports Detroit that had that.
I think it was Kenny. I think it was Kenny and Mick, wasn't it?
I think so. If it wasn't you guys, then it would have had to have been. But
yeah, it would have been probably those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun. The Kaiser almost played in that one, and instead he decided to sign pro, and he played in the game at the Big House instead. Because remember they had it was originally scheduled to be there, and they had that lockout year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, was that 12?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it was supposed to be 12, and it ended up being 13.
That's right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I remember that. Yep. No, didn't do that one. I still haven't done an outdoor game in my career, and you know, it is what it is, man. But I mean, I'm fine doing what I'm doing, man. I love going to Yost. I love going to Munn. You know, my grandpa took me to Munn when I was a little kid, and he was my influence. And every time I go in there to do a game, I go down in the corner and tap the seats and look up the sky and tell him I love him. And that was a part of the beginning of my love for hockey. And you know that, and I was 8 years old when we won the gold. So in '80. So those are really the two big influences for me, and that's why I fell in love with the sport. I mean, I'm 5'11", and you know I was a 5'5" shooting guard trying to be like Magic Johnson for my hometown, and it wasn't going to happen for a few reasons, boys. So
trust me, I know. Everybody's tall, dark, and handsome to me. I'm about 5'8".
I'm 6 foot with my hair spiked up.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us and taking the time. It was honestly, like I told you before, you were a bucket list guest for me. I hope for Mike too. I miss hearing your calls on games. They were some of my favorite away games because I wasn't at the game watching it live where I wouldn't hear you.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much. There's normal YouTube stuff you can do if you want to. You don't have to, whatever. People do what they want. Stuff's been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen, like a Gmail account and our page Twitter account. So if you missed those, rewind like 10 seconds, you'll find it, I'm sure. Until the next episode, I've been Wes. He's been Mike. Thanks again, Ben. And we will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.